Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of r/entitled People Stories. Our first story we'll be reading today. New neighbors have 9 people crammed into a 2-bedroom apartment and are extremely loud all of the time. After that, am I the jerk for wanting my husband to include our daughters more instead of just our son? And after that, am I the jerk for correcting my ex-husband's new wife when she made assumptions about why our marriage failed? Now for every like that this video gets, one Karen gets her Elden Ring account deleted. Don't you dare, Reddit boy. So please smash that like button and subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. New neighbors have 9 people crammed into a 2-bedroom apartment and are extremely loud all of the time. I've lived in my apartment for almost 2 years, and my experience has been unproblematic so far. I live in the second to last unit, and our old neighbors in the last unit moved out about 2 months ago. We got new neighbors in that unit 3 days ago. For those 3 days, it's been rough. There are at least 5 kids and 4 adults living in the unit. The kids and adults yell almost constantly. Kids are loud, but that doesn't even bother me the most because it can be tuned out. What's bothering me is that the adults have had at least 2 extra vehicles in the parking area. Each unit gets 2 spaces, unassigned, and my partner and I utilize both of ours. And they play loud music for hours while smoking and drinking in their running cars. In the day, they do the same, and the kids run around all the parked vehicles. It's painful to see the alerts on my doorbell cam when the kids are playing around the vehicles, because I bought a new vehicle just last week, so I'm still in the phase where I'm hyper aware of making sure it's taken care of cosmetically and mechanically. On day 2 of new neighbors, one of the kids set my car alarm off somehow. I still can't figure it out, but a scooter was involved. My dilemma is, what do I do? I've already asked one of the adults nicely if they could maybe avoid the kids playing tag with vehicles, but shortly after is when my alarm went off. I don't want to complain to management because the neighbors would obviously know it was me, as I'm the only next door neighbor aside from the building across from us. Maybe I'm being dramatic or paranoid, I don't know, man. I really feel like a Karen, but this crap is stressful for me considering I haven't had to worry about this crap since I've moved in. I doubt the management rented to 9 people. Let them know. I agree. In my 2-bedroom place, they only allow a maximum of 5 people, 2 people per bedroom and a 5th person in the living or dining area. They know some people convert the dining room into a 3rd bedroom, so they allow it. But 9 people? Highly doubtful. If your layout is the same as your neighbors, your lease will be about the same. You can check your lease for rules on maximum occupancy for your unit and hope that their lease is the same. Well, what would you do in this situation? Would you report your neighbors to management or not? Please let us know. 9 people in a little apartment? Sounds to me like some of them should be getting jobs instead of hanging out in their cars all day doing God knows what. Am I the jerk for wanting my husband to include our daughters more instead of just our son? I have 3 kids, 2 twin girls who are 8 and 1 son who's 5. My husband had always preferred having a son, but he remained neutral when our first 2 were daughters. Don't get me wrong, he loves our daughters. But somehow he has this poor misunderstanding that they would not be able to enjoy the things that he likes and leaves it to me to bring them out or engage them. Before, he at least used to involve them in fishing or soccer and his other hobbies, but after my son was born, my husband completely stopped engaging my daughters in his hobbies and only involves our son. He leaves the bulk of it to me because they have more in common with me. I involve all 3 of my kids equally in whatever I do, be it sports or gardening or even teaching them coding. I'm in tech. It's quite disheartening to see the indifference, and I'm worried that they will catch on to the idea that they are lesser than. I have communicated multiple times and suggested that when he takes our son out to fish or do sports, he brings our daughters too so that they can learn. But he says he prefers one-on-one bonding sessions with our son and he can't change his parenting style. Our daughters are athletically inclined as well. I used to be in competitive tennis for most of my schooling years, and I train both of them and my son every Saturday or Friday, depending on my free time. Last Saturday, there was a community football game which was set up as part of a charity with a mini carnival. I was shocked to find out that my husband bought only 2 tickets for him and our son, even though there were plenty available for our daughters to join. Even if he believed they wouldn't have enjoyed the game, they could have participated in the carnival. In that anger, I bought 3 tickets last minute and brought our daughters along as well, but sat separate and enjoyed the carnival and game by our own means. Ironically enough, my husband thought I was being condescending by doing that, even though I was giving him a taste of his own medicine. I might be the jerk for reacting like that, but after multiple failed avenues for communication, I decided to resort to underhand pettiness. He also told me after that it is not that he doesn't care for our daughters, but just that he does not have anything in common with them, which boils my blood. Even if, as I said, both our daughters are very inclined in sports and love spending time with their father. Edit. I appreciate the advice and expertise received. I do plan to show this post to my husband. Maybe a multitude of perspectives could do him some good. I have suggested couples counseling before, which my husband was not interested in, as mentioned in the thread below. Regardless, I will try again to convince him, perhaps to get personal therapy too, so that he can work through any issues he might have. After reading through the judgments, I do agree that he might have some biases and misconceptions that he needs to change before it severs the relationship he has with them. I love all my kids equally and want them to have a wonderful relationship with their dad, as I did with mine. I know he can make a change if he tries. Thanks once again. Couples counseling. That's what you two need. He's never going to hear it from your mouth. Your husband is being a jerk to the girls and raising a spoiled, special, entitled son in the process. He will ruin all 3 kids with this crap. Not the jerk. OP. I have suggested this idea on more than one occasion. He says he does not wish to partake in it and that it is embarrassing to him and that it would make him look like a bad parent, even though I reassured him that he's not, and that they will only help us through fixing some of his misconceptions about our daughters. He sure sounds like a bad parent to me. Stop reassuring him that he's not a bad parent. He is, and you know it. I feel so sorry for you and your daughters to be with a jerk like him. He is a bad parent. My dad played a lot with me. We played with Legos, we built things, I helped him fix stuff around the house. Your husband is reinforcing an outdated social construct. It just makes me angry for you. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her husband? Please let us know. Am I the jerk for correcting my ex-husband's new wife when she made assumptions about why our marriage failed? I'm 48, female, and was married to my ex, Jim, who's 49, for 20 years. We have 3 kids who are 22, 20, and 18, and have been divorced for 5 years. Both of us are now remarried, but we maintain a good relationship for our kids and because we do like each other. We divorced because Jim was a bad husband and not a great dad when we were together. Jim worked long hours to build a wonderful career while I had to neglect my career to be there for our kids. He didn't truly understand until it was too late. He provided for us and still does provide for our kids. I'm grateful for everything he did, but admit that I resented him during our marriage because I had to watch his career take off while mine, the same career, stalled. For a little more context, I married a mutual friend, David, who's 50, of Jim, and me. We were both divorced, no cheating was involved, and my ex have never had an issue with it because he knows that we didn't cheat. We both had a conversation with him at the start of our relationship, and he was actually happy for us. 4 years ago, Jim met Kara, who's 34, and they got married 2 years later. It's her first marriage, and they had their first baby last year. As I mentioned, Jim and I have a great relationship that includes monthly dinner with our kids and just us. We've been doing this since we separated 6 years ago, so our kids understand that we are still a family, and it allows our kids an opportunity to share things with their parents and siblings without anyone else. The issue came up on Easter, and I'm not sure if I'm the jerk or justified. We were all at former mother-in-law's house for the holiday, and Kara was going on and on about what a wonderful husband and father Jim is to her and their daughter. I don't care, because I know my ex has more time now than he did when our kids were younger. I didn't really say anything until Kara looked directly at me and asked in front of the entire family why I ever gave Jim up. She also made a comment about me being too busy falling in love with my husband's best friend. I simply looked back at her and said, "You know, Kara, he wasn't always a great husband and is only so wonderful now because I was willing to make a ton of sacrifices so he could have a successful career. But don't worry, you are very welcome for that." Almost everyone laughed, including Jim, but Kara was upset and texted me later that night to tell me how hurt she was that I insulted her and her husband at Easter dinner and said I shouldn't have even been there. I ignored her text at first, but she called the next day to continue the conversation. The conversation eventually turned to me explaining that my marriage to Jim and her marriage are very different, and while I am happy that they are happy and have a great life, she doesn't get to rewrite history or comment on the type of husband Jim was to me. I reminded her that Jim and I have spent many years working through our crap, and while she may think she's funny, she just comes off as insecure. So, am I the jerk? Not the jerk. It was pretty audacious of her to assume the demise of your relationship with your ex was entirely on your shoulders. Not to mention, very insulting to accuse you of cheating. She needs to grow up and take responsibility for her words, especially as a mom. OP. Thanks. Her comment about my husband was very odd considering we did not live in the same city when my ex and I split, and she knows that. Also, your ex-husband knows, or that's the way it came off, that he was a crappy husband and father. He even laughed at what you said. He's changed, good for him, but that doesn't negate the past, and for someone who wasn't involved, his new wife sure thinks she knows a ton. Not the jerk. She can dish it out, but not take it. This was absolutely none of her business. She had no right to make this comment at that dinner, nor to follow up with a text or a call. She's 34 going on 12. Yes, she is insecure. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or husband's new wife? Please let us know. Am I the jerk for getting mad at my mom for making my girlfriend sleep on the floor? My girlfriend, Rose, and I have been together for 4 years, and she's 5 months pregnant with our first kid. My mom seemed to really like Rose, or at the very least tolerated her. But after we announced that we were expecting, something definitely switched in her. She's become extremely rude and disrespectful towards my girlfriend. She makes passive-aggressive comments at every chance she gets. I've had to take a step back from my mother until she fixes her behavior. Rose had gone to visit her family, who live far out of town. It was a very last-minute trip, and she drove herself to the destination and back. Unfortunately, at around 6 p.m., her car broke down, and she was forced to pull over. Fortunately, my brother, Chris, who's great with cars and lives about an hour and a half from where Rose was stranded, was willing to pick her up and sorted everything out. I was out of the country, so I'm grateful that my brother sorted everything out for her. Chris moved back in with my mom about a year ago. Obviously, the situation wasn't the best, especially considering the tension between Rose and my mom that exists for no particular reason, but I hoped my mom could put her pettiness aside for at least a night. It was too late for Chris to drive Rose back home, so my brother told her that he would drive her back tomorrow morning. An arrangement that my mom seems to not like, but one that she managed to keep her mouth shut about, my girlfriend tells me. Rose helps prepare dinner, wash up, and actually engage in a decent conversation with my mom for the first time in ages. However, they mostly avoid each other. Chris goes to bed earlier, leaving my mom and Rose. My mom lives in a 2-bedroom apartment, and since both bedrooms were taken, Rose assumed that she would be sleeping on the couch. She apparently assumed wrong. My mom gives Rose the thinnest blanket ever and basically screams at her, telling her that she has to sleep on the floor to not ruin the couch. She tells Rose to make do with the pillows on the couch and the blanket that provide zero warmth. Rose thought about protesting, but ultimately decided against it. According to Rose, my mom kept opening her door to check if she was sleeping on the couch, so she couldn't even try to sleep on the couch. At 5 a.m., Chris found Rose on the couch and let her sleep in his bed. He ended up telling me, but told me to not make a big fuss about it. I did the exact opposite. I called my mom, very angry, and told her that she was disrespecting her so badly. She tried to defend herself by saying that she didn't do anything wrong, but I refused to hear any of it. Chris agrees with me, but told me that I shouldn't make it a fight. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Listen closely. Your mom is feeling threatened because there's another woman about to become a mom in the family. This feels like her role is being taken away and will lead to worse behavior. You have to have a zero-tolerance policy for this. Sit your mom down and tell her that she will always be your mom. Also tell her that if she continues to treat your girlfriend this way, it will damage her relationship with you, so she needs to knock it off. Good luck, OP, and be firm in your boundaries. Lost in IKEA. I guess I'm your guide. I had been going to my local IKEA to pick up bookcases, bedside tables, and whatever else I needed for my new apartment. It's about half an hour away, so I've been going after work, still dressed up in work clothes. My job is an office situation, and I wear a shirt and tie, so I guess I can't blame the confused-looking old-timer who accosted me in the as-is section. Old-timer. Do you work here? Me. Nah, I just dress up. We share a laugh, and he looks disappointed and lost. I guess years of retail work have broken me in, because I then continued. Me. I can try to help if you like. What's up? The old man looks thankful as he pleads. Old-timer. How the heck do you get out of here? I'm not sure why, but in my absurd mind, I like to imagine that old-timer might have been a young man when he first entered the store, and that he had been subsisting on meatballs and sleeping on display sofas as he wandered endlessly. He was so close to the exit, of course I had to help him escape this Swedish purgatory. Me. Oh yeah, I can help. Follow me. I politely walked him to the exit. He thanked me and was on his way, into a world much different than the one he knew when he first ventured into IKEA. Sadly, they did not have the Billy bookcase I wanted, so I got the Kallax ones. But at least I did a good deed and used my weird middle management vibes for good, and not for evil. If you're out there, old-timer, I wish you well. Not as an employee, but just as a helpful human. Am I the jerk for not being grateful to my parents? I don't have a great relationship with my parents. Growing up, they were very cheap and often saved money to the detriment of my health. I needed fillings as a teenager, and they didn't want to pay for it, so they just told me to brush my teeth more. The cavities became infected. I was crying and begging my parents before they got me to a dentist and I needed a root canal. Even then, they waited a week before they found a dentist that gave them a discount because the original dentist was more expensive, in which time I was screaming and crying because I couldn't bear it anymore. I also didn't get glasses until I started working. I had good grades, but I could barely see and had to be right in front of the whiteboard. I told my parents, but they didn't want to pay for glasses, so I was bullied really badly, but they told me to just ignore it and study. They didn't want to spend the money for me to dress nicely, so I wore 1 or 2 outfits I had and was bullied badly for it. I was so depressed, but they didn't care, just kept telling me to study and do my chores. They never talked to me apart from telling me my grades weren't good enough and to do my chores. Even when my grandma passed, I wasn't allowed to the funeral because I would have missed school. We weren't poor. We owned our own home and had 2 cars that were pretty nice, but my parents never wanted to spend money unless it was for things they could brag about. I finished college this year with $58,000 of student loans, and my parents presented me with the full payment, saying they had been saving it for years. It was the only time in my life they told me, "Good job." I know I should be grateful, but the tooth pain and not being able to see for years and missing grandma's funeral just so they could pay off my student loans made me mad knowing that they had money. They were so proud they saved up the money, but I was not happy telling them I didn't want it. I already have a job that pays $90,000 out of college, so I can easily pay it off myself, and I don't want them to think the ways they saved money were okay. They were calling me ungrateful for not being happy I don't have student loans, but I would have preferred having student loans over having to live like we were in poverty. Not the jerk. Take their money and don't look back. They'll never admit that they're psychopaths, so don't waste your breath. Surround yourself with positive, emotionally healthy people and move on from these non-parents. They hardly qualify as a mom or dad. Was handed my first allergy cards. It's a 6-top family. They had a reservation, so this was a pre-planned outing. I do my greeting and they hand me these cards. Life-threatening allergies: soy, peanuts, tree nuts, shellfish, dairy, eggs, gluten, barley, oats, peas, probably 3 more things I'm forgetting. Keep in mind this is 7:30 p.m. on Easter Sunday, and they didn't think to make any prior arrangements. They just showed up and handed me these cards. They're interested in the mussels. I check, and the sauce has dairy. We cannot substitute. Well, maybe we could with some notice, or if it wasn't Easter dinner time at a restaurant. Or how about the carne pizza with gluten-free crust for an appetizer? Awesome, only 5 ingredients for me to track down. I'll be right back. Except table 93 just got set, since under normal circumstances, this 6-top would have drinks and orders in by now. I greet 93, grab their drinks, and see that 602 is done eating. I clear their plates, print their check, and then go try to find the box of frozen gluten-free pizza crusts so I can read the ingredients. May contain egg. Oof. I head back to the table to let them know. Oh, that's okay, as long as it doesn't have eggs in it. Now my spidey sense is tingling. That's not how life-threatening allergies work. Contamination is a huge issue, and the "may contain" warning on the label is for exactly these circumstances. Oh well, now I have to look for the packaging on the pepperoni and the sausage. But first, 93 needs to order and needs bread, and 602 has their credit card in the book and has popped it up for me to see, and table 92 just got set. I take care of all of them and then start digging in the coolers for meat packaging. 10 minutes of digging, and I'm pretty sure the packaging is all gone. I can't find any ingredients at all. I head back to let them know. They've now been sitting for 45 minutes, ordered only water. I pass 92 off to someone else and tell the hostess to leave me alone until this nightmare table is gone. Sorry guys, I cannot confirm a single ingredient in the pepperoni or sausage. Oh, that's okay, we'll be fine. You can put that in. What? At this point, I'm sort of done with this charade and giving them options, so I say, as far as entrees go, I happen to be allergic to soy myself, and I can tell you there's one thing I can eat here: the bolognese with no cream added. They all just looked at me and one by one said that would be fine. They tipped $50 on 200, so there's that. Our host wasn't in yet one morning, so I answered the phone. The very nice and polite lady explained that they had a dinner reservation that day and she had a garlic allergy. She didn't want to hold up the rest of her group, so she was calling about some options she had seen on our menu. She was interested in the grilled chicken, but it was marinated. She asked if there was a way to get an unmarinated grilled chicken for dinner. Because she called that morning, I was able to let the chef know. He made sure to have a plain chicken breast ready for her for dinner. It was so nice that she was so thoughtful. I don't do anything right? Fine, I'll do it your way. I used to work for a private company which was owned by a wealthy woman who could afford to have her dim-witted, stubborn, and mean daughter run one of the departments. It didn't go well, but it was a small department, and the mother was more interested in keeping her daughter happy than in making profit. Thankfully, the daughter, Em, usually only worked a few hours each morning to help me out, and then she would leave. I'm all for inclusion and encouraging people to learn new things, but Em was not fit for management and definitely didn't have the faculties for accounting. She would help me, and I would wait for her to leave so I could fix it, writing legible notes, sending notices, giving customers change and receipts, posting past due notices, etc. This went on for 3 years until I found a better job and gave 2 weeks' notice. Em was livid. She felt like it was a betrayal. Em started staying all day to do any bookkeeping. She started talking to coworker and customer alike, telling them I don't know how to do my job. I do everything wrong, and it's all my fault we weren't a better department. She would do this in front of my face too, pulling someone aside to talk in stage whispers. I can't do anything right? If you say so, I'll stop doing things my way and only do what you explicitly ask for. I won't take the fullest usage from a payment, but instead give change like they're buying 1 unit. I won't transcribe her atrocious handwriting. I won't give past due notices. I won't maintain the customer balance spreadsheets. By the end of my last 2 weeks, they had switched from using Excel to using a spiral notebook to log customer payments, gave away the laptop with the old notes and customer contact sheet, and forgave any outstanding balances because Em insisted my notes were wrong, meaning they lost a couple $1,000 and clients would have no way to contact them unless they came in person since our department didn't have a designated phone number. But remember, I never do anything right. She was condition setting. See, you were supposed to stay forever to do the work and for whatever pay you were getting so that she could work a few hours and go play with her friends and pretend that she had a real job. When she realized you were quitting, she realized she'd be done for because she was supposed to be learning all the time you were there, but went to play instead. So she started doing this so anything that went wrong after you left would be your fault and not hers. This is an unfortunate commonplace business practice. Karen, future mother-in-law, was wearing my fiance's engagement ring. For context, I, 30 male, and my fiance, 28 female, got engaged 2 years ago, and we have a nearly 2-year-old son. And to help her mother out, we moved in with her over 2 years ago because she couldn't pay for her house herself. And my fiance said a bit of support would be nice when the baby came. Ever since we moved in, you can't actually have anything to yourself. Food, snacks, the TV. Once she was wearing one of my hoodies, so I literally can't have the clothes on my back. But one thing we put the foot down on was her engagement ring. The day I gave it to her, she insisted on trying it on. Fiance said no multiple times. Future mother-in-law went far enough to try to take it from her hand until I physically took her hands off my fiance and told her to back off, and then told her that ring is her daughter's and no one else will be wearing it, trying it on, or anything else, and that we really feel it's disrespectful and bad luck to wear someone else's engagement ring. It was brought up constantly over the next 2 years. She never gave up. But last night was where it blew up. My fiance was putting on fake tan in future mother-in-law's room. It's only a 2-bedroom house, and I was putting the little lad to sleep, so she couldn't go anywhere else. And she naturally took the ring off to put on her tan and left it on the side locker. After I got my son asleep, we went downstairs and future mother-in-law went to bed. And as we were watching TV, my partner jumps up and says, "Oh no, I left my ring in future mother-in-law's room." So she goes up to get it, and it's not where she left it. So she woke up her mother, and before she asks, she sees it on her hand while she's asleep. When she told me that's where it was, that was the straw that broke the camel's back. I shouted at her that the level of disrespect we suffer around, there's a lot more that I can't fit on this thread. Here was too much, and we were moving out ASAP. She starts crying about not being able to pay the bills, and she'll be homeless, yada yada, And to be honest, I don't care anymore. Because not once did I hear an apology from her breaking the most clear boundary I have set for living with her, and for upsetting my fiance. It's a superstition in her family that if someone wears the ring before the couple gets married, that the marriage won't last. Also worth noting, future mother-in-law has a lot of warts on her hands, at least 20, from poor hygiene that she's been told by her doctor are contagious, but won't get treated. So, am I blowing this up a bit too much or what? Am I the jerk? Edit. Just to clarify on the wart thing, I know they can only be spread by broken skin, but she has so many due to poor hygiene and is constantly picking at them, breaking the skin and making it worse. Edit 2. I said we moved in with her so my fiance could have support with a new baby, but we don't trust her with our son. After a few times, she watched him and left him in dirty nappies and neglected him. She hasn't been on her own with him since he was a couple of months old. It was just a reason we moved in that didn't work out. Strict compliance leads to a company collapsing. I worked for a major government contractor for a government agency. If I named the agency or location, it would be pretty obvious to people with long memories and an axe to grind. I'd risen up through the ranks because I have a good technical knowledge and I have a knack for seeing a big picture view of big projects and seeing potential problems. I was very good at what I did. Many managers didn't like me because I pointed out problem areas, over 75% accuracy, and I stated facts without regard for management politics. I didn't suck up. Some managers gave fair-haired boy, a suck-up, credit for my work, which I'd done before fair-haired boy was even working on the project. Then they desperately needed my technical expertise on a very large procurement, 8 digits. I wrote most of the technical specifications, identifying risk areas and the consequences of bad procurement decisions. Fair-haired boy dismissed my arguments as no big deal, and we can work around that. So management ignored me and ended up buying inadequate equipment. I was reassigned again, and fair-haired boy was given what should have been my job, with a promotion and a big raise. My parting gift to the project managers was a detailed memo highlighting every technical problem that I foresaw in that development and how it could be avoided. It was a very long list of nearly 100 watch items, and they ended up hitting almost all of them. As usual, management ignored me. Due to the company rules and a lot of prior excellent personnel performance reviews, management couldn't fire me immediately, but I could tell I was being set up for termination. I was assigned a job to work directly with the customer as liaison, actually sitting on the customer site. Management figured I'd be an irritant and distract the customer from the company's issues. In the meantime, I'd keep our company informed about what the customer was saying behind closed doors, and I was supposed to tell the customer what the management wanted me to say was happening in the company. Management intended it to be a do-nothing job to keep me out of sight, out of mind. I don't do nothing jobs. I took it seriously. But after a couple of months, management told me in no uncertain terms that I was not permitted to answer the customer's questions about what was going on inside the company on the project, and that I was not permitted to talk at internal company meetings where the customer's needs were being discussed. I was muzzled and set up for failure, or so they thought. Now comes the malicious compliance that ended up with revenge. When asked by the customer, instead of X or Y is happening, my response was pretty much like, I am not permitted to tell you whether the project is significantly over budget, and management won't let me tell you whether or not the company is dropping design requirements for features A and B. I explicitly complied with management's directive of not answering the customer's questions, but I slipped in enough hints in my non-answers that the customer knew where to look and what questions to ask. The customer also kept meeting minutes and often recordings which always reflected that I did not answer questions about the subject under discussion, which was technically the truth. This was very critical later. Eventually, management couldn't hide that the project was way late and over budget, which didn't surprise the customer thanks to my hints. The customer ripped the company a new one in their periodic contract performance review. Note, on government contracts, it's very difficult to get a low performance score. Really difficult. The company got a very low performance score. It was ugly, and the company lost a lot of contract bonuses, which would have been a big part of profits and management bonuses. And fair-haired boy was under such stress trying to solve the problems that I'd warned him about that he had a major heart attack and retired from medical disability at the age of 42. It was a bad heart attack. Naturally, management wanted me to be the scapegoat so they'd get to fire me, but the customer liked how I worked, and they protected me with very careful language in their performance appraisals. Basically, that the task I was doing was the only task in the company that was performing effectively, and everything else stank to high heaven. Upper management didn't dare fire me, or they'd anger the customer even more than they already had, possibly to the point of having the contract taken away for non-performance. One particularly nasty manager who really hated me had to give me a significant pay raise and bonus because of my work. The fallout from the review was bad enough that corporate headquarters did some management shuffling and a few of my antagonists were suddenly gone. The raise and promotion ended up not mattering because the customer hired me directly working on the same project but on the government side. This caused management to crap their pants because I knew all of their dirty secrets and tricks, but I never ratted on any of the managers or company dirty laundry. I didn't have to. My new coworkers had previously figured out where to focus their attention and what questions to ask to get past the company's BS. I complied strictly with the terms of my separation from the company and gave away no secrets after I left the company. One of the best parts was that in meetings, all I had to do was put on an evil grin and the company managers would practically crap themselves, wondering if I was going to unearth one of their skeletons. I never did. I just liked watching them squirm. They got paranoid about being caught trying to lie to the government that they were admitting bad news up front. Because of bad performance, the management admitted it got even worse for the company. They decided to try letting their legal hounds on me for violating company non-disclosure agreements, but the customer's meeting minutes proved that I hadn't. The contract was restructured to eliminate several blind spots the company had used to their advantage. The customer's oversight of the company rose significantly. Profit margins on the contract shrank. Several of management's favorite employees suddenly had resumes on the street because their protection was disappearing. Even more managers retired or found other jobs. It was glorious to watch, doubly so because I let them do it to themselves. And I was extremely happy in my new job where I still work.
Support our channel by joining as a member today, and we'll give you a shout out in our next video.
Or come watch this video next. You won't believe what Karen does in that one.